Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday. It's about 11:13 a.m. here, California time, June 4th, 2024. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.5 into the region of California. We'll get to all this earthquake activity here in a little bit, which looks like there's some broad movement out there in the last 24 hours here in just a second. I want to cover the earthquake activity and volcano activity there across the Kilauea volcano, which is currently paused still. Let's double check the most recent update, see if they've put it out today or not. It does look like there's been an update, but they got yesterday's date on there for Monday. But the current status shows that it's an orange and watch color code. Now it looks like we are paused still. They haven't put out a new one today yet, but things are look like they're still on a standstill in terms of the eruption. Here is the eruption map just southwest here in the southwest rift zone of Kilauea volcano, in between the 1971 and 1974 vents there. Yesterday's short duration, it was about 12 hours there of eruptive activity. I don't think this is over. There's quite a bit of magma underneath this region that we've seen here. A lot of inflation going on here recently, and quite a few of these ground cracks out here. Now this looks like it may be on foot. Hard to tell. And then again, maybe not, because it almost looks like we're looking down here at the smoke. Hard to tell. But these guys here, the USGS, stating that these cracks out here, it doesn't show how long they are. They're pretty lengthy, but they're stating they're up to about 6.6 feet in width. And we were looking at these last night in the update, and they looked a little bit bigger, but it was hard to tell from the air. To me, it almost looked like it could have been 30 or 40 feet with these cracks. But either way, there's quite a few of them. These look like the smaller ones, but there is some bigger ones up there to about 6 to 6.6 feet wide, which is rather interesting there, because that's a lot of pressure going on underneath this area, a lot of movement of the land. Here is the aerial of the southwest rift zone when it was pretty much at its peak. Pretty crazy. Nice looking, right? Obviously very photogenic out there. And today's activity, of course, has come to a halt. Let's go over here and check out the map, see if we got a webcam of it. They did set up a little temporary webcam here to monitor the activity, and it's about as close as we're going to see for now. It does still look like there's some volcanic gases going on. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's an eruption at the surface. But again, they haven't really put out any update out here today. Just the status at orange and watch. And when we go over here to the update, this is from yesterday. So obviously things are quite dynamic and could change rapidly, even in the wording here by the USGS. I think we're going to see further activity out here soon. On a longer duration type of event, not just 12 hours. There's a lot going on underneath the ground, a lot of inflation. Let's look at the inflation chart. It does look like we've leveled out. Of course, if you look here at the last month, and you've been following my videos, we see this stair-stepping ladder event, and this has been going on for months. Back in February, we've seen a huge displacement of that magma during one of those stair-stepping events, and it dropped off to the southwest rift zone. The magma did, and we've been going up and up and up since then, and we're still at quite a high level. In fact, the highest level still observed since 2018, since the 2018 eruption there, which happened out on the East Rift Zone. That was more of a dynamic and crazy event. So even with this small depletion of magma on the southwest rift zone that we seen yesterday, we are still quite elevated out here. In fact, it only looks like maybe we've depleted a week's worth of magma accumulation underneath this area, because each level, right, brings in further and further inflation, further and further magma, and we didn't lose a lot 12 hours of a very minor eruption there across the southwest rift zone yesterday. So we're still up. Looks like we're stationary. Going to watch this throughout the day today, but it does look like we are starting to slowly go back up in terms of inflation. So, yeah, it'd be very interesting to see where this leads to. Of course, there's the area of interest out here. Earthquake activity has been, let's bring up one of these, see what it looks like. Hit and miss there. A little bit of earthquake activity here and there. Really no unusual activity to take note of at the moment, but things could change in the blink of an eye. I'll continue to watch this closely and report back on things when they do decide to stir up out here. I mean, obviously there's a lot underneath this region. It's got to go somewhere, right? With the continued supply from the deeper areas below, things got to change out here. A lot of pressure going on underneath this area. The summit area, let me go back here and check out the summit area as far as any webcams go. Hold on a second here. Let me go back over here to our webcams. Easier just to go this route. The summit area today looks like it has been since the last time we've seen an eruption up here at the summit in the lava lake area. Volcanic gases around the sides. Really no changes. There's that smoke out there, volcanic gas emissions from the one of the vents out there, but it's hard to say if this is continuing or not in terms of eruption status. It doesn't look like it though. All right, let's go back to earthquake activity around the globe here and see what's going on. Look at the globe here. It does show some movement out into the South Pacific, Southeast Pacific out here in the East Pacific Rise. A handful of earthquakes out here around the Easter Island area just to the northwest. 5.4 and a 4.8 earlier this morning within about half an hour of each other. This, of course, is a looks like it's out here on this little fracture zone here on the plate boundary. Little interesting event out there. Should amplify the conditions out here across the South America region. Of course, this is off of this main divergent zone. You can see the new oceanic crust here and the lines indicating a separation here of the seafloor throughout time. But this area right here looks like it's just a jumbled up mess of a different type of fault system here. But we'll definitely keep an eye on it. Movement across this area of New Zealand and the Tonga area today a little bit quieter. Do have one 4.9 into the Vanuatu area, it looks like, just south of there actually, coming in within the last hour. Lot of nothingness going on here across the Western Pacific. Things are much quieter out here today. Minimal earthquake movement there across the Philippines, threes and whatnot. Further out and about across this area of the world, a lot of movement from yesterday out here across the Mediterranean and up into the Switzerland area. I believe that's where that 4.1 struck yesterday. Yep. Really no further activity following that movement. One little earthquake here off the coast. 3.1 looks like it's off the coast of the Morocco area. And the Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. So a lot of the newer movement here today seems to be focused out potentially on the eastern side here of the Pacific Plate. Let's go ahead and check out California. I just seen a 2.5 coming in right now to the Bay Area. Well, this is a few minutes old, but getting some further activity up here across the Calaveras Fault Zone, which kind of runs into the Hayward Fault. And, there's been a little bit of earthquake activity out here recently in terms of watchful movement. Simply because of the danger that exists out here with this fault system, the Hayward Fault and the Calaveras Fault Zone. There's quite a few overdue fault systems out here that's capable of producing some large earthquakes through some very populated areas. And let me show you guys the last week or so of activity. There's some movement up there on the northern edge of the Hayward Fault, down south as well. A lot on the Calaveras Fault, and that's where we're seeing that most recent quake, a 2.5 right now. So continue to watch that. Bay Area, it's living on some borrowed time. Many fault systems out here are living or actually well overdue for some larger scale movement, including the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. Got one little earthquake, 1.4, just off this area. And a handful of quakes up and down the San Jacinto Fault Zone as well. So continue to keep an eye there on the California region. Up here in Northern California, a lot of movement here from yesterday, but still seeing some earthquake activity in a little swarm fashion. About 17 kilometers here into the subduction zone of the Cascadia. That's the southern end of it. And of course, we have been looking at elevated tremor activity out here recently into the Cascadia subduction zone. This was yesterday's activity here. Notice that movement underneath Northern California. This is basically slow slippage going on here between the two plates. You got the Juan de Fuca plate here to the west that is subducting underneath the North American plate here. And these deeper regions adding further, when this tremor activity occurs in the deeper regions, we're adding further strain upstream here. So that's why we're seeing some elevated earthquake activity, roughly about 15 to 17 kilometers there into this area. The tremor occurs deeper down there, about 35 to 45 kilometers or kilometers. Which one do you prefer? Which one's the correct meaning? I guess that depends on where you're at, right? Kilometers. All right. So we'll continue to watch that. The southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, definitely seeing some activity stirring up out there. Through the Pacific Northwest, a handful of microquakes out there. Really nothing major going on. The rest of the country. Yellowstone. Let's double check Yellowstone, see what's going on out here. If they are functionable today. And they are. So some wind yesterday, seen some 50 mile per hour gusts out there across areas of Yellowstone. Today doesn't look like there's too much going on. Earthquake activity wise, we do have a couple small quakes in the last hour or so. That very small earthquake activity showed up here across the Little West Thumb, the Pitchstone Plateau area as well. But that's about it. Really no major unusual activity there across Yellowstone for now. The rest of the country out here, as you can see, one little lonesome earthquake out in the Georgia area, 2.2. Aside from that, oil fields out here in the Oklahoma and Texas area continue to get hit. Let's go check out Iceland and see what's going on up here across the Iceland area. And earthquake-wise, about 65 earthquakes across a couple different rift zones here, mainly away from this area where the ongoing eruption has taken place there around the Svartsengi area. The Live from Iceland chart here, where all the webcams are positioned, does show at least one active remaining crater. Let me see if we got two in there or not. Kind of hard to tell, but definitely one. When we look back here at this webcam, I've seen a little bit of fountaining going on right there still. So we'll continue to watch that. Looks like that is still continuing in terms of the eruption status. See if they put out an update today, which they have. Awesome. The recent data indicate that magma accumulation continues underneath Svartsengi as before. So they're stating that even with the ongoing eruption here, that we're getting the continued supply from the areas below. There's when it was a little bit more active here. Deformation measurements show that the land continues to subside in the Svartsengi. When the magma flow started on the eve of the eruption of May 29th, the land in Svartsengi subsided by 15 centimeters, but has now subsided by an additional 4 to 6. Now that isn't that opposite of what they're saying? Isn't that against what they're saying up here, right? They're saying that the magma accumulation continues underneath the Svartsengi area. So if that was the case, we'd be looking at inflation, right? Here they're stating that it's not, that the land is continuing to sink or to deflate. And that's what I was talking about last night here. If we look at these charts once again here, this is a different scenario compared to the last eruption where the inflation continued even with the ongoing eruption. But if you look here, see, here's the last eruption back there in February, early March. When that dropped, obviously that's a huge volume of magma that was brought up to the surface, and lava fields formed. But we were still looking at inflation during that entire eruption. Here's the most recent eruption. Notice the huge drop, but now instead of leveling off or going up, we are going down. So that could be a sign that we may see a longer break in between eruptions here. Downward. Not a whole lot going on there, so we'll continue to watch these charts. But could be a sign that once this eruption ends, that will be it for a little while. All right, checking California once again. Let's check out the space weather activity here, where we're not looking at anything major going on right now. Still got a decent chance of some X-flare activity. Now, 3697 here, the source of all this recent X-flare activity, continues to hold on, but it does look like there's a little bit of weakening going on here with these colors. They're not quite as big, not quite as prominent here, but there is still a little bit of complexity within that core. But it does look like it's starting to fade away a little bit. But keep an eye on this one, because that is still, got a possibility of seeing some stronger flares here before it either completely fades away or gets out here on the western limb again. And we're left with a whole lot of disorganized sunspots out here aside from this one. Really not a whole lot of complexity within these sunspot cores. A look at the far side of the sun does show 3683. That will be coming into view here in a couple days. We'll get a better look at that once it comes around the eastern limb. It does still look quite dynamic, at least in terms of its size, but we really won't know about the complexity of the magnetic core until it gets a little bit further into view. But we'll continue to watch that. Right now, again, 35% chance for an X-flare, M-flare at 75, C-flare around 99% chance. No major auroras in the forecast. Look at the Storm Prediction Center out here. Far as weather goes, it's going to get quieter after today. But today still got not a huge percent, not a huge area, but a 5% chance here with a 2% around Oklahoma for tornado possibilities. And it does include the Oklahoma City area. More Midwest City in there as well. Wind and some large hail threats in there as well. So heads up in these areas. Of course, general thunderstorm activity potentially across and surrounding the main threat areas today. And tomorrow, just a broader view of thunderstorm activity with marginal risk for some severe weather. Looks like mainly a little 2% up in Ohio for tornado, wind, and maybe a little bit of hail in there as well with some of those thunderstorms that brew up. All right, folks, live stream is up and running. It went down suspiciously about 3-something in the morning. Again, I'm thinking about 3:33 in the morning. I don't know why. That tells me right there when it happens at a specific time, and some of the viewers out here know why 333 is a significant number for me. It does have significance, but for it to be going down at 3:33 in the morning, most of the times when it does go down, I'm not doing it. Why would I pull my own stream down? I'm sleeping hopefully at 3:30 in the morning. But 3:33 in the morning, someone's somehow tampering with and pulling the plug on the stream. So if it does go down, we will try to get it back up ASAP. For now, I have the majority of what happened to New Zealand's offline there, it looks like. Oh, no, it's up here. So I'll get rid of that one. I do have the majority of seismograph stations back up here and running. Chile. We'll just keep it like this for now, unless something changes. But we'll keep these seismograph stations here in view. And, of course, keep an eye there on the big island of Hawaii. Again, earthquake activity, fairly non-existent today, but things can, they can go either way. They can really ramp up out here. Super dynamic situation unfolding. And it will be interesting to see how this plays out. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Have a good day. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening, unless we got something major going on. Of course, then we'll jump back on here. Take care.